Okay, we'll talk about sanctions on Iran. The Americans are threatening to have sanctions on Iran. So if you look at the divisions between America and Iran, it has been going on from 1953. Now, if America put sanctions on Iran, then Iran will suffer. But Iran has built a lot of alternate pathways so that they can withstand the sanctions. Okay? So what will happen is that Iran, in my understanding, that Iran will lose immediately after news of sanctions, but America will be the biggest loser, because if you want to be the global reserve currency, you can't use sanctions so much. Then people will move away from sanctions. Now, the Americans they use the weapons. They put tariffs and sanctions, afterwards sanctions. Now, if you take Canada is moving away from America because of the tariff. Because today you put tariff, then after 3 weeks they remove it, then after again you put tariff. So if you look at the world trend, they are dumping American bonds whenever they can do, because you can't do business with America. Okay? So most countries are moving away from dollar. This is possible. Now, if you take sanctions, Pakistan has good relations. Pakistan has good relations with China and America, and Pakistan has opened up 6 land routes to Iran. So, my understanding is that Iran will suffer if America puts sanctions. In the short period, they will suffer, but who will suffer most will be Pakistan, because you will have these secondary sanctions, and Americans will say to the Pakistanis, you don't deal with Iran. So there is a possibility there that it will be the Pakistan who will suffer from the sanctions. Iranians will overcome the sanctions, because they are from 1953 there have been conflict, even when there was Shah, that the people in Iran didn't like the Americans. So, not necessarily economics, but before the Islamic Revolution, there was some friction between the people in Iran and America. So these sanctions, the American sanctions on Iran will hurt Pakistan more than Iran. Now, most countries are trying to move away from America. You should take Turkey. Erdogan worked with Israel to get rid of Assad. And if you take Azerbaijan oil, it comes to Turkey. So now Israel has become nervous as far as Turkey is concerned. So Assad, Turkey, Israel, and these ISIS groups, they all worked together and they got rid of Assad. So you could say at that point, Erdogan worked with Israel, America to get rid of Assad, because Assad suffers the problem. Now Erdogan wants to occupy some of the camps in Syria, right? And Israel is nervous about that. That is where there is conflict. But if you take this, as I mentioned earlier, if you take Azerbaijan oil, it comes through Turkey into Israel. So Israel considers Erdogan as an enemy. But at one point, Israel was working with Turkey to get rid of Assad. So for Israel, I mean, you have alliances, then now because Erdogan wants to establish camps in Syria, whereas Israel wants to keep Syria under their control, and even the Golden Heights. So there is now, at one time, Israel and Erdogan was friends, and you can say that in a way, under when during Assad's time, Iran and Turkey were on different sides. Turkey, at least the leader in the country was with Israel, and they were fighting against Assad. Now it's different. Turkey wants to expand their military presence in Syria, and Netanyahu is totally opposed to it. Now there is some understanding between Turkey and Iran, unlike earlier times. So Israel is nervous about the intentions of Turkey. So we have two things happening. First thing, Americans are trying to put sanctions on Iran. I don't think it will work. It will have a minimal effect. It will have more effect on the Pakistanis. Second thing, there is the conflict brewing between Israel and Turkey, because Erdogan wants to control Syria. Okay? So, and if you look at the world, because you can't trust American president, because he puts tariffs and things like that, then people are trying to move away from America, if it's possible, and they are American bonds. So you have three things happening. One thing happening in Syria, which might lead to a conflict between Turkey and Israel. Second thing is that America has no military options. First thing, they were talking about using a nuclear weapon, but that the military leaders in America is opposed to that, because that's a war crime, and that if America used military weapon against Iran, the world will change, and other countries also use nuclear weapons. So I think any sanctions against Iran, ultimately it will backfire against America, because people will try to move away from America. Already most of the countries are trying to sell their American bonds and things like that, if it's possible, right? First thing, because oil prices are gone up, some countries are short of foreign exchange to buy oil, so they are selling some of the American assets. Second thing, they don't want to deal with Donald Trump because he's not predictable. Then you have this conflict brewing, or there is the possibility of having conflict between Turkey and Israel. So there are three things happening, and especially you have to watch what Canada is, the relationship between Canada and America. My understanding, Canada is moving towards Europe and China. They are trying to move away from America. So America will be the biggest loser there. And if most of the countries are trying to get rid of American bonds, right, because they can't trust, many reasons for that. Sometimes you don't have money to buy oil because the oil price. Other thing, you want to move away from America. So America is getting isolated. More and more it is getting isolated, whether it is Europe or other countries. It is because you can't predict what Donald Trump is going to do. So if a country can move away from America, then we have this. So you have sanctions against Iran. I'll mention again, sanctions against Iran, and most of the countries are moving away from America if it's possible. Third thing is that you have divisions. You have friction growing between Israel and Syria. Israel and Turkey. At one point, Israel and Turkey was working close together, and Donald Trump considers Erdogan as his friend. But I don't see how that friendship will last long. So we have to watch for what is Canada is doing. We have to watch for what is Iran is doing. If there are more economic sanctions, and we have to watch how it is going to affect Pakistan. Secondary sanctions. Then we have to watch what the friction going between Turkey or Erdogan and Israel.